we're going to start off our conference now. We're going to start off with a presentation by Geshe Ngawang Norbu.
I pay much homage to all my gurus, including His Holiness Dalai Lama, and my other gurus who provided me maximum care and unconditional support to be here in this magnificent hall, presenting you some few Buddhist knowledge that I gained from their teaching. So my presentation, as you know, is on mind and mental factors. Initially, when I was invited to give presentation on this topic, I thought it would be very easy for me to share mind and mental factors, because as a human being, I'm also very emotional. Every day, every moment, I deal with this mental affliction and different emotions. So I thought maybe I can just pinpoint those very easily. But when I started doing a little research, I found out that it's not that easy. It's very complex. So I think my presentation might not be very fruitful for you all, especially the scholars here, Buddhist scholars. I think my presentation will be something like very superficial, nothing in-depth understanding. But somehow, I hope that it will raise many questions especially in the student's mind, so that this will, open more discussion for the coming two days, where you can ask more questions to the other scholars, those who are more learned than me, who are, going to present. So when I start preparing this presentation, initially I thought that the importance of knowing mind and mental factors is mainly because, as a human being, because I heard this so many times, that His Holiness, at his public teaching, he said that the purpose of human life is to be happy or seek happiness. And I thought, based on that, I can share a little bit about mind and mental factors, the importance of knowing mind and mental factors. And now, recently, everybody, I think, we're following the election back in US. So you might have heard who will be the next president of the United States. And I think, the scope for career as a psychiatrist will increase. So I'm going to encourage young students here to learn to focus more on mind and mental factors, not only for yourself, but in the future, the need of psychiatrists will be, double. So, having said that, I'm going to start with my presentation here. So, mind and mental factors, as you know, mind, as a human being, everyone has mind, and we know what mind is. Unless we try to check whether we know mind or mental factors, it seems that we know what mind is. We feel that I know what mind is, but it's not that simple. So I have here an outline. I might not be able to cover everything here. So my outline is why knowing mind and mental factors are important. What is mind? what are the mental factors, and how mind and mental factors work together. So my presentation is based on Buddhist understanding, Buddhist perspective. So, and I'm not going to cover, there's no way that I can cover whole that's in Buddhist scriptures. I'm basically sharing this understanding from a particular text called Abhidhamma Samuccaya. So Abhidhamma Samuccaya text mentioned there are 6 minds and 51 mental factors. I think many of the students know about that. I saw that some of the textbooks has mind and mental factors in there. So the importance of mind and mental factors, I briefly mentioned the importance of knowing mind and mental factor. Beside, at the introductory talk by Geshe has shared everything that is important to know mind and mental factors, how to regulate emotions and generate or cultivate more positive emotions. These are all nicely shared by Geshe, so I'm not going to go into them. And then, what is mind? This is a big question, and there are different definitions. So, since I'm talking about mind and mental factors, the understanding of mind is a little bit different. So, here mind is something described through its function. Normally, when we say mind is something clear, luminous, and has a character of knowing. But here it's based, since I'm presenting on mind and mental factors, so mind is something that can cognize the mere entity of the object that is observing. So I put a picture here, which mind just observe it or just see whole object as a one entity. And there are 6 types. As you know, there are 5 sensory consciousness and then 1 mental consciousness. 5 sensory consciousness are eye, ear, nose, tongue, body, and the 1 mental consciousness which pervades everything. And then mental factors. The function of mental factors are to cognize the feature of that object the mind is observing. So it will look at the particular feature of that object, and it will. So it has its own. Each mental factors has different roles to play to make the whole picture observable or cognizable. So there are 6 types, 6 categories when I talk about like 51 mental factors. First, 5 omnipresent mental factors, and then 5 determining, 11 virtuous, 6 root affliction, and 20 secondary affliction, and lastly 4 changeables. So here you see the picture where mental factors, when mental factors are involved, it will differentiate the shape of a duck and the rabbit. So this is the responsibility of mental factors to differentiate. And then mind and mental factors, they have 5 similarities. I'm not sure if I'm correctly translating that into English, but we in Tibetan it's called Tsungden Nambanga. So 5 similarities are there. So basis, and then second observed object, aspect, and time, and substance. Okay, so the basis is, when we say basis, is the sense power where mind and mental factors exist or developed. And then observed object is the external or the object that the mind and mental factors are observing. And aspects is the mind and mental factors both have same aspect of that object. And then the time they arise together simultaneously. And the substance is each primary consciousness will have one feeling, one mental factor as a feeling, and there won't be two different feelings together in coming with a single mind consciousness. So these are the 5 similarities. And then 5 omnipresent. The omnipresents are the one that accompany with all the mental consciousness. So the first one is feeling. Feeling either pain, pleasure, or neutral. And determining factors is the one that determine the future of the object. And then the third, intention, is the one that which draw minds towards mind and mental factors towards the object. And then the contact, which give rise to feeling. And then lastly, the attention, the one that focus on a particular character of that object being observed. So out of 5, I would love to say a few words on intention. I found out that intention could be the one that if you really want to tame your emotions, if you are able to contain or control the intention as the mind arises or the intention arises, if you are able to control it at that moment, there's a chances that you will not get into negative emotions. Or if you are able to redirect, or if you are able to utilize the intention properly, then there's a chances that you will be able to have more positive consciousness or mind. So intention here in the scripture is mentioned that it's somewhat like a magnet that pulls the irons towards it. So as long as you are able to use some of the mental factors to check on the 5 omnipresent as it arises, if you are able to check, these are done through training. Since I'm not expert, I cannot share more on this. You can go on and ask the expert who are good meditators. So they are able to do that. The moment something is about to occur, if you are able to tame at that moment, then you will be able to control your mind. So for one example that I remember is, if you, I'm sure everyone here has attended His Holiness public teaching. At many occasions, you will notice that His Holiness will almost share something, and then at the last moment he will stop sharing it. So that's how he is utilizing introspection, and then check whether it's suitable to share or not. So if you are highly trained meditator or highly trained practitioner, then you will be able to grab the moment where intention is trying to draw your mind towards that part that you don't want to be there. So this is one example, and hopefully you will be able to learn more in the future. And then the 5 determining factors: aspiration, appreciation, mindfulness, concentration, and wisdom. These are there are different interpretation, different way of describing the mental factors. So according to Abhidhammakosha text, these are also included in the 5 omnipresent mental factors. So I'm not going to go detail on this. And then there are 11 virtues: faith, shame, embarrassment, non-attachment, non-hatred, non-ignorance, effort, pliancy, and conscientiousness, equanimity, and non-harmful. These are the 11 that if you really want to be more towards the positive mindset, These are the ones that you have to increase. And then 6 root afflictions, attachment or disastrous attachment, anger, pride, ignorance, doubt, and afflicted or distorted views. So here I put disastrous attachment. I'm going to share more in the other slides, and that's coming afterward. And then there are 20 secondary afflictions, those who derived or those who are somewhat like extension from the 6 root afflictions. So based on the similarities or I divide them into 5 or 6 categories. So the first one, derived or some similarities same with the attachments are like miserliness, haughtiness, and excitement. These are more towards attachment. Actually, they are attachment, types of attachment. And then there are some which are derived from anger, like rage, resentment, spite, jealousy, harmfulness, these 5. And then there are those that derive from ignorance, like concealment, lethargy, laziness, non-faith or lack of faith, forgetfulness, and non-introspection. And there are 2 derived from both, can be both attachment or ignorance, like deceit or deception, or I think these are a little bit different translation. We'll talk about that later. And then those derived from 3 poisonous afflictions, namely anger, attachment, and ignorance. So none shame, none embarrassment, none conscientiousness, and distraction. These are the 4 that comes with all the 3 different mental root afflictions. And then there are 4 changeables. 4 changeables are like sleep, regret, investigation, analysis. So here, sleep, these are 4 changeables because based on the motivation that comes with these 4 mental factors, they will become either positive or negative. So here, I think when we were young, our master used to advise us to pray just before going to bed, that through that way, or generate more positive mind just before going to bed. So that will make our sleep, whole sleep, positive. So, easily, this is a very easy way to accumulate more virtue. And then regret and investigation, analysis, these are also, interchangeable. And then how mind and mental factors functions together. Before that, I would like to talk about the 3 causes that leads to consciousness. So the 3 causes are the empowering conditions, and then object condition, and then there is most importantly an immediate presiding mental consciousness. These are the 3 causes that give rise to the consciousness. And the empowering condition, the 5 sense organ for the sensory perception, and then these are mental faculties that give rise to mental consciousness. These are the 6 empowering conditions. And then objective conditions can be anything, any object that mind and mental factors observed. And then the most difficult thing for me is the immediate preceding mental consciousness. It's very complex because maybe we'll come to that in the question answer session. It's a little bit challenging for me to pinpoint the immediate preceding mental consciousness for I consciousness or any consciousness. And then how the mind and mental factors functions. I have a short presentation on this. Mind and 5 omnipresent, for example, mind as a whole that pervades all the other mental factors, and 5 omnipresents will be simultaneously arise with the mind. So here you see the feeling, discrimination, attention, and intention contact these 5. I've marked the intention red, as I warned you earlier that it's important to grab the check intention where mind is going. So intention I consider very important. Here when I say mind, it can be all the 6 mental consciousness, primary mental consciousness. And then I want to take a specific example. Here I have attachment. As you know, attachment is the biggest challenge for everyone, including myself. So attachment is, as you know, is one of the 6 root affliction. It is very easy to arise and difficult to recognize, especially its negative aspects, and then difficult to overcome. So I will deal with one at each time. Attachment in Tibetan word, it's called decha. There are 2 syllables there, de and cha. So normally in the common English translation is, as you know, attachment. And here in Tibetan word, it means somewhat like curving and clinging nature, something that don't want to separate. So once you have attachment towards an object, you will curve, or you will want more about it, and then you will not want to separate from it. So these are the 2 nature of attachment. And then attachment, as you know, is one of the mental factors. It comes with the mind, and here I point out other 9. I think there are more, but from my understanding, I thought there are 9 secondary affliction which will come together to support the attachment. So namely, they are like jealousy, deceit, non-shame, non-embarrassment, non-excitement, non-conscientiousness, forgetfulness, and non-introspection and distraction. So these will be there, simultaneously arise with the attachment, and then complement each other to make attachment overcome all the other mind and mental factors that comes together. So as you know, 5 omnipresent will be present with the attachment, and then ignorance will play a big role in there. So due to ignorance, we are not able to understand properly, and then attachment itself, and eventually it will turn all that movement of the consciousness somewhat like a attachment. So this is how mind and mental factors function together. So one mental factors take over all the mind and other mental factors that comes with it. So when we say attachment is just a mental factors, but due to other supportive mental factors that comes with the attachment, it blown out and becomes somewhat like fully, empowering kind of an attachment. And then when I say easy to arise, 2 minutes, okay. Easy to arise, it means, sorry, I didn't have translation for this, but because we have those emotions with us, this is one condition, and then we are near, the object of attachment has surrounded us, and then we have that, negative projections, mental projection. When these 3 are combined, then it's natural that the result will come up. So the result here, in this case, is attachment. So when I say that there are so many things that give rise to attachment, like these are the quotes that I took from advertisements, like commercial advertisement. Here they encourage us to be, create envy in others, neighbors' mind, and they consider pride as something positive. And then they always say that they brings good things to our life. And here are the good things that they brought to our life. Mostly, I want to pinpoint the connecting people aspect here. Connecting people, yes, we are connected to far away people throughout the world, but we are neglecting the one that living just next door or just nearby. So these are the way that multinational companies are trying to induce in our brain or mind. And difficult to recognize mainly because there is a positive side to it. That's why we get confused sometimes, because attachment is the one thing that, according to evolutionary scientists, is necessary for survival. So attachment is one thing that bonds us with our families, friends, and societies. So there is a good part to it. And then if you are not able to control, or if you are not able to balance it, then once it is too extreme, then there are some negative result, like becoming biased is one thing. You become biased and you are not able to see the good qualities of other than the object of attachment. And then you'll become insecure eventually once you are not able to, once the object of attachment is not near you, you feel lonely, you are not able to, stay properly, and then you get into troubles. And then unstable nature, because if the object of attachment somehow change its reaction towards you, then your mindset will change because it's unstable, and it leads to anger, give rise to anger, and then you started hating that object. And then difficult to overcome because negative emotions, other negative emotions are somewhat like, this is the example that's given in the Buddhist scripture, are somewhat like dust on your dry clothes. You can just remove them easily, but attachment is something that penetrates into the cloth, or somewhat like something that penetrates, and it's not easy to overcome. It's somewhat like an oily cloth where dust stick, so it's hard to remove. This is the example that is given there. And then lastly, I just want to compare attachment and anger. Here you see the object is same. When attachment arises, you will see that object 100% attractive, right? And then when anger arises, same object, you will see that 100% negative or unattractive. So here it shows that it's just a mental projection, not something to do with the external, or there is nothing substantial that is there which display that it's absolute attractive or absolute unattractive. So since I have a limited time, I'm not going to go detail in this, and that's all my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Geshe Ngawang Norbu for that wonderful introduction to the mind and mental factors. I know it's a tough thing to try to introduce in a short amount of time. We have some time before we move on to our panel discussion to get some questions from Matthew or Rajan. Do you have any questions for Ngawang La?
I see the mind and mental factors as an organized system to bring together these different aspects of what we in the West, in Western science, label cognition, attention, emotion. And although we do it a little bit differently, there's a lot of overlap between how we think of these and how Buddhist science and philosophy thinks of these. And I think one major difference that I'm interested in is that as a science in the West, we do experiments, we try to refine our systems and to see if they're correct, and in this way we're trying to get closer to the true nature of what we think is in the mind. I'm wondering, is there a possibility of doing a similar thing in Buddhist philosophy, of refining that system of mind and mental factors? Can it be corrected or challenged in any way? And if not, would you find any use in doing something like that? Or do you see it kind of as set in stone and that's how it is?
I think this is a very good and important question. Well, when you say that there are similarities from scientific understanding and what I present, I think, the presentation that I prepared, I consider something similar to Western scientists. We normally, as His Holiness say that it's Buddhist science. So I'm glad that you see some similarities there. But when it comes to your questions about refining as what the scientists are doing, I think it has been already done. I think I'm not able to cover in this presentation mainly because of lack of my knowledge and maybe a limited time. So I think what I understand, if I understand your question correctly, I think most of the time His Holiness keeps saying that, ancient Indian psychology is highly advanced compared to Western psychology. So I think they had already done that. But when it comes to experimenting, I think we do that, Buddhists do that in first person's perspective, and scientists normally go for third person. So there is some challenges. And then one thing that I just want to mention is that, if you are trying to pinpoint emotions and other mental factors through sensory faculties, then I think there will be always shortcomings. Like you will be not able to get to the gist of what consciousness is. That's what I understood. Thank you.
I'm not sure. Yeah. Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. I'm not sure of the comment of the form. Can I also comment on Matthew's question, or do I just ask questions?
Either, wherever. Yeah.
I have a question of my own, but just to comment very briefly on Matthew's. You see, within the Buddhist sects earlier on, there's been a lot of debate on what precisely are the mental factors. This debate has arisen out of experimental investigation, as Geshe said. In the first person perspective, people who have developed very deep states of calm, able to clearly see their minds, have identified mental factors, and it's not as if all groups have agreed on what the mental factors are. But as his introduction to the paper says, there's a broad consensus on what are the mental factors. So a lot of this work which you are speaking about, as he said, has already been done. That's my brief comment. My question is, you said one of the omnipresent mental factors is discrimination. So for example, when I see, let's say I see somebody who's very attractive, the mind is just seeing the face. But the discriminating factor is something which is arising in me, saying that this face is very attractive, this person is a very attractive person, right? Now, another person seeing the same face may not find it so attractive. Now, because I am seeing this person as attractive, attachment arises in my mind, and my mind moves towards that person, doesn't want to look away, wants to keep looking at that person and so on, okay? And that's how the emotion of attachment builds up. The problem seems to lie at the level of discrimination itself. As you said right at the end, when we see someone as attractive, we see them as 100% attractive. Therefore, we are kind of adding on to what is objectively there. Now, why is it that I see someone as attractive when the other person doesn't? And is there something which can be done at that level so that we can correct our discrimination? Because if we don't correct the discrimination, then it's difficult to avoid feelings of attraction and emotions of attraction and all what follows. So what is the process by which we relook at the way we see things, we see situations, persons, okay, as a way of clearing up our minds? That's my question.
I'm not sure I can answer your question, but I think discrimination plays a role in there. But when it comes to, I think, attachment, discrimination, well, you know, the role of discrimination is just differentiating between the object it's being observed and the background of it. So this is the role that I understood as a discrimination. So somewhat like, you know, red or color difference, like that. But if you are able to control, or if you are able to check discrimination, will it make effect on building up attachment? I think I'm not sure on that. Sorry, I'm not able to, you know, answer properly on that, because I consider attention, and then the one thing that, you know, stick your mind towards that object is the particular, you know, attractiveness is the attention out of 5 omnipresent. So omnipresent, you know, 5 out of 5 omnipresent, intention that draws towards the object, attention will specify that particular attractiveness and then, you know, let you focus on that. So I think intention and the attentions are more involved. And then sense of feeling, it plays some roles in there. And about discrimination, I think discrimination plays just, you know, just differentiating between black and white, somewhat like that.